everyone. On my last video, I had not had audio turned on until about 5 minutes into the video. And so I went into the video editor, which for anyone who's interested, if you're in YouTube Studio and you've just published a video that was live streamed and you would like to make edits to it, you can go into that video. You can go into that video, I believe. I guess let's go to content. And then we can go to live. And then we can click into it, and this is me showing this video live. This is showing right now. But this one here was the previous video, and I can click into that. And now there's this nifty editor here. Now the thing about the editor is it doesn't fill in your thumbnails until, like, I found up to 24 hours after the video was published. And that's a long time for people to wait to jump in here and have empty video, no audio. So I do remember from playing with this after the thumbnails were generated, like a whole 24 hours later, that I can hit trim, and that puts a different user interface down here that allows me to do things like split. And I happen to know that it's around 5 minutes and 5 seconds in. So I can, I guess, watch. Oh, there, over here. So I watch over here for 5 minutes and 5 seconds. And I'll go to just a few moments before that, 5 minutes and 1 second. Okay. So for experimentation's sake, I should be able to hit split there, select this part, and I guess delete it, right? Is it the delete key? Is there going to be a little trash can around here? Split, clear all, preview. Can I right click it? See, those are the web browsers things. What I want to do is delete everything to the left of the split. And there's an undo and a redo. There's a little video thing to watch it. There's this little wait thing. There's discard changes, and then there's save as new. So even if I wanted to, I couldn't save as original, see? This becomes just a plain old save once enough time has gone by. So this is bleeding edge, ladies and gentlemen, right? So the penalty for, not being a master streamer yet, not knowing all the subtleties, the ins and the outs, is that I have to live with some period of time, 24 hours or whatever, of people going into this very interesting video. I made this lovely thumbnail with Jack Pumpkinhead and John Belushi. And people are going to be, what's all that about? And then they're going to see the empty audio, and they're not going to necessarily wait 5 minutes. They might jump around, and they're going to get the wrong start point. They'll hear the audio later and jump in the middle. It's not an ideal opportunity. So I will allow this to be a lesson to myself in controlling that audio. It's mostly a function of the interface screen here when you start. No, it's a function of the interface screen here in Open Broadcast System, where you can switch between different scenes, right? This scene here is the live video feed, the audio capture, and these other previews I make which I tend to delete out between things because I never use them again. They're just made for that one video, have different audio attributes. But when I switch back to here, it doesn't always turn the mic on. I'm not quite sure. There's audio input capture, desktop audio, main camera, mic, and audio. So when I go to these other things, I just sort of click them off to make sure I'm not accidentally broadcasting the audio while I'm waiting to go live. You're a toilet flush or something. There's no need for you to hear that. And then when I come back and I go back to scene, I don't always remember to get all those audio things. So that's what happened in that last video. And I was really hoping that YouTube would allow me to do that video edit before making me wait for the thumbnails to be generated, at which time I'll be able to clean it up. At least they have that. At least they have that, right? This is life on the bleeding edge. I can't even believe you have to be in a web browser to live stream. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, sure, Google has Chrome, and it's more likely to have Chrome working correctly on your machine than it is, say, a standalone Electron app. But the standalone apps is the direction Twitch went and other live streaming platforms. That Google went this direction is both odd and a source of confusion, because now it has to be one of the open tabs while I'm live streaming. It's strange user interface, but you know, this is the price of jumping on this bandwagon in the early days. So I guess that's all I have to say about that. It was a failed experiment. Perhaps I'll show you editing video in YouTube after your live stream when these thumbnails come back. I guess I can show you the thumbnails. See, I have to discard changes now. I can show you what it's supposed to look like in some other video. I go back to my channel content and I'll go into, say, this one here. I want to go into a short one because some of these are long. Go into a nice short one. Oh, I can't even tell what's short. They should have the time duration here, don't you think? This is the earlier streaming. Well, oh yeah, there it is. Of course, it's right there. All of my videos are long. Sorry, folks. Here's one that's only 5 minutes. And we hit the editor. And there you have it, thumbnails, right? So I'm not going to really do the editing, but you can scrub like this to see the different video up there. And then you can hit trim, and you can double click. Oh, you can hit split. And now you'd be able to click that side over here. I still don't know how you would delete. Clear all. Oh, they're both selected. So there's a concept of unselecting, maybe. Unselecting. Right click is going to be the browser's stuff. That's not good. Clear all. Oh, clear all was clearing all that stuff. So we do that again. We can do a split. And you would think that after doing a split, there would be a delete option somewhere. Perhaps I'm just missing it. Undo, redo. Oh, well, I'll figure it out on my own time. There's some rudimentary editing in here. At least you can see the thumbnails. And if I were to do something and then get out of the trim mode, oh, maybe that's what I have to do. Maybe once you're done, you get out of the trim mode. Undo, redo. Save, discard changes. Oh, let's see the keyboard shortcuts. Zoom in, zoom out, nudge, toggle, mute, font size, to create. Where's things like delete? It's just navigation in the video. How can you not have a delete option after you split? Clear all, preview.
And after I did a
Undo, redo. Well, so this is context sensitive. When I click outside of here, that becomes ghosted. When I click inside, it's not ghosted. So this is context sensitive. Trim, blur, audio. So it's really interesting. You have face blur, you have custom blur. You have different things you can do with audio. Well, not much. Oh yeah, putting in, canned audio, free music. That's interesting. Exiting out of these things. See, it's got a user interface. Oh, there's back. That's interesting. Back. So that thing changes based on what you do. Trim. Split. It knows I haven't really made changes. So once you split, yeah, baffling. And this is one where the thumbnails have been created. I know I've done this before, so I'll look into it and I'll check back with you real soon and show you a little bit of editing YouTube video. This has been less than a stellar demonstration and experiment, but at least I'm cutting my teeth on it just in time for the APIs to constantly change on you because this is bleeding edge. Oh, I won't stop because, whoa. Yeah, hey there, Celtic Orthodox Prayer. If you got anything you want to say, you can let me know. This has not been the video that I have hoped it would be because I can't figure. We can Google it together. If people are here, I'm not going to cut you off. Some people tuned in, so I'll keep streaming. This is, trim YouTube video. Now the issue is I don't want to go into another YouTube video or it'll demonetize, have the double audio. So there's support at Google. Trim your video. You can cut out the beginning, middle, or end of your video. Open the editor. We saw that. Select content editor. Yeah, we were into the editor. Select trim. Blue box will appear in the editor. Click and drag the sides of the blue box. Oh, preview. To confirm your edit, select preview. To confirm your edit, select preview. That is so odd. Maybe that'll work in the video that I had just published. Maybe I can edit that before waiting for the thumbnails. So we go into the content. We click the editor. Yeah, you know nothing about video editing. See if inside YouTube rendering is happening on your machine or the server. Oh, it's an interesting question. So the parts, Celtic Orthodox Prayer, the moving parts here is that I've got this piece of streaming software, which is streaming out onto the internet, sending stuff over whatever. I'm not even sure if it's TCP/IP. It's very possible that it's UDP/IP or some other IP-based protocol that sits on the internet. But this is just shooting it out there with an ID, and that ID is coming from here. It's not going to show it, but there's actually a streaming key that ties together this web page and that piece of software. This is running the show. This is a YouTube interface that runs the show of live streaming. And then this is just a live streaming piece of software that has access to the camera, has access to my microphone, and has access to the network stack. So if there's any sampling going on, it's at a very low, it's just hardware compression at most. It's whatever it can do efficiently and fast and on the fly and send out an IP stream. That packet stream is then being received by YouTube on some of their back-end systems and is, I'll go back out here for a second because it let you see that, it is actually showing it live to you folks with some sort of delay. So with minimal compression, with very little additional processing, YouTube is taking the inbound stream and turning it right back around with you. They don't even have to deliberately add a delay. There's just a delay by the nature of this kind of stuff. But they are still capturing it on the back end, and they plan on compressing it and delivering a higher quality image to you later on. And when all that post-processing is done, additional features come into being, right? So until those features are done, you don't see other thumbnails, right? It hasn't read it enough to have optional thumbnails. When you go into the editor, you don't have your thumbnails here in the editor stream. And when you look at it through that other interface, it actually tells you a little bit here about whether SD is available or not. It's really weird. It might not be showing it now, but once the higher quality stuff is rendered, there's some sort of visual indicator that the higher quality is available, that they've done additional compression so they can deliver a higher quality image to you on the fly. But until that happens, there's features disabled. It's more like a raw data stream. Yeah, OBS. OBS stands for the Open Broadcast Software, Open Broadcast Studio. This is a very special piece of software. It's not going to have a very readable about, but I'll show you. Oh, there it is, OBS Studio. And so you can actually stream, I believe, straight from the web browser. The web browser can be given access to your microphone, your camera, and your network stack. Obviously, it has that. But the fanciness that's going on here is little things here and there. The ability to change what I'm streaming, right? It's got an interface to change between like preview images and the live feed that you're seeing here. It also has this neat little equalizer thing, so you can really tell, you know, what's coming through your different audios. You can toggle your audios on and off. And then all that stuff about sampling, like as much compression that actually does happen, it's the control of it is given to a dedicated piece of software, you know, running as a client, which is very specialized to its purpose. It's from the open, it's free and open source software, by the way. Okay, so to show you where to get this, it's certainly installable as some sort of standalone install, but you're always going to find this stuff on GitHub as well. So if you just search OBS, it's probably popular enough. You just saw the browser wars right there. I'm in Bing. I don't search in Bing. That's because I was moving fast and I tried to click here, but my search ended up down here. People are like, nobody searches in Bing. Well, Microsoft has rigged it so that a certain statistical percentage of people are always going to end up searching in Bing. And it did the right thing. It was a satisfactory search, but just out of principle, I'm repeating the search in Google. So here you're going to see their homepage, right? So this is where you can learn about it and download their different pieces of software. But on the trust level, like, is this something that is you should use and know about? Here it is also in GitHub, right? So like any good modern piece of software, it should be free and open source, and it probably should be hosted in GitHub, and you can read about it there. So that's what this is. It's software designed for capturing, compositing, right? So that compositing, the thing about my face being in the upper right, that is here. I can actually unlock the preview, and I can pick up my face and move it around, right? That's where it's being done. It's being done in OBS. I'll relock the preview, go back and see if you guys are typing to me. Yep, okay. Wow, so when I go completely off topic is when I keep people. All right, that's good. So it gave me some hints to go by. I should be able to go into this video, which does not have its thumbnails, go into the editor, which is just an amazing thing. I might knock Google a little bit, but honestly, to have a video editor for YouTube after the broadcast took place is nice. I mean, imagine all the screw-ups people do during live casting. It's not on your machine anymore. It's live cast. It's out there. It's in the cloud. Google has it. And you're like, oh, I accidentally showed something. I got to go edit that out. You couldn't. In fact, here now, if it were an emergency, do you really have to wait 24 hours? That's what I'm trying to figure out. So I hit trim. I take the scrubber, and I go to 5 minutes and 5 seconds, which is where I know the audio comes in because, you know, I watched it. I go to 5 minutes and 3 seconds. That's sufficiently before it. I hit split, and now I can I hit preview? See, just like there's no save, you know, it's save as new, and even that's ghosted. I couldn't even save as new if I wanted to. So the answer is now to see it really be able to do it, I would go into one where the thumbnails were created. So I can discard changes. I can go back to my channel content. I can go back to that little 5-minute one. Hit the editor on that. Hit trim. Position my cursor, hit split. And now, apparently, if I hit preview, what the heck is it? See? Preview is ghosted. There should be a way, there should be a delete. There should be a trash can icon somewhere here to delete. Maybe it has something to do with making a selection after you split it. Maybe it's where you click it here. You can also do that. So now preview is visible, but that was just a trim. Oh, and I'm outside. Oh, and there's a save. So this would just be a trim there. That hasn't really asked for a delete. Oh, and I can move those. Look at that. That's interesting. And there's preview again. Doesn't seem to really be previewing though. When I hit preview, it just takes you out of that trim interface, right? So, oh no, it doesn't even. It says you're still in the trim interface. But there is a save. So whatever was actually done could be saved. It's hard to even know what was done. I hit discard changes. We go back to the documentation. I check whether you're chatting to me. A neat sci-fi thing if a guy tried to edit his live stream and discovered that he could edit the future. Yeah, right? Tell me about it. Oh, Ben. Yeah, that's right. I kind of know that from the email you sent me. If anyone's looking for a, I should pull it up, but I'm not going to show my email. A developer. So you can say some of the essentials here. I'll know your information a little bit better. Oh, wait, I can read your email here on my phone without showing it, of course. Personal email. I got so much. I'm just going to go to my normal inbox instead of my combined inbox. I know it's one of my red ones down here. Benjamin. Yeah, there you are. Looking for work since your contract was canceled. Yeah. I want to be sure what I share is right. Expertise in the IT/CS world. Avid Emacs user. Handy with Scheme Lisp. Wow, you're a hardcore type of person. Trained violinist. Professional level. Exploring Lillipond and other Foss music notation stuff. You sound like a really interesting person. What an interesting background. You're definitely on the side. Oh, okay. So if anyone's looking for a IT CS person in the Philippines, get in touch with me. I'll put you in touch with Ben. Yeah, advice. Yeah, I don't know. I like being in-house. I love being in-house. You know, contract work is nice, but if you can get the full-time gig where the appreciation level is high. So, I mean, the trick there is to always be doing the work that people need. So, I mean, I know you're a Lisp scheme guy, but if you get down pandas under Python, Python pandas, to just do generic data fetching, retrieve data over HTTP with all kinds of API authentication, be able to handle connecting to data sources of various types through various TCP/IP type connections. Pull data down fast and furious. Only optionally use the cloud. Use your local resources if you can. Use key value stores to pull that data down fast. Use the same arguments that allowed you to pull the data as the key of the key value pair so that there's no misunderstanding. This is how the data was pulled. And then you get into transforms. You transform the data from the raw key value pull into row and column of various sorts. And once in row and column, you can often just hand it over to the other people who need to do the analysis. And that's the one trick. If you want to be a one-trick pony that makes you valuable in today's world, that's what I've found. Everyone can use the user interfaces provided by other people. But you will notice that in my virtual screen setup here, I always have the full screen terminal in the first window and the Jupyter desktop in the second window. And not until the third window do I have a web browser. And the fourth window then starts to be wildcard. You can see I only have 6 windows. I usually have 7 here, and I usually have things like the broadcast software over in the 7th window. So you saw me just move it there. But the important thing I'm really saying here is I'm never not doing data pull stuff. I'm always pulling and pushing data from places, even if it's GitHub. You'll see when I quit out of my editor, watch. I go back into my editor. If I write and quit, watch what happens on the quit. It's doing a git push, right? That is one of my latest neat tricks. Yeah, data cleaning. Cleaning is a big part of it. Cleaning and normalization and just all kinds of data preparation. So the key point there is, and I'm going to start my journal again here and start a new entry just to get some of these pointers down. So this is just going to become an interactive session. It's different than the live streaming I began, but you know, there's people here, so why not? So I'll break this out and get back to my normal, best laid plans of mice and men. I had one particular thing in mind. It failed, but that's when people were joining in. See, the workday is beginning too. It's 9:30. I got to be careful. But all this is work related. This is what I do. And sharing a little bit with the world like this keeps me sharp and thrifty in my job. I see no reason why I shouldn't know a little bit about these things, because I'm on the bleeding edge right here. This is not your everyday stuff. Not many people do this kind of live streaming yet, at least not so comfortably and just part of their daily workflow. And that keeps me sharp as an SEO. So we scroll that up. That should keep my head displaying here, keep this going here. And so, advice, the question is from my friend Ben. Question from Ben from the Philippines. I'm never going to spell that right. Phillips. Oh, I can remember that. Pines. Philip Pines. No worries. So question from Ben from the Philippines, who is a scheme list person. And by the way, that is hardcore. This is the stuff I admire most. These are the things I admire most. And he's also a musician. So that just makes it like all these things that I've, really wanted for myself, but have lacked the motivation and the discipline to pursue. And so I'm talking to someone who is like connecting on a sort of spiritual level who chose the tools I covet. Now, I don't feel particularly bad about it because the tools I ended up going to are a lot more straightforward, shall we say. You don't just load Emacs and start using it. Oh, thanks for the spelling there. Yeah, I got it out of your email here. But you do just start loading Vim and start using it. Using Vim on one machine is the same as using Vim on the other. So I'm talking to someone who is highly customized, whereas I am not. You know, Lisp Emacs users are highly customized, whereas I am not. So my first thought is, you know, who am I to give advice? But I have figured out a few things that are, you know, very suited to today's world. Which are quite easy, especially compared to you know, to the building it up macro stuff of the Lisp Emacs world, especially compared to the custom world. Okay, and those things are everyone needs to analyze data. Few know how to ordinal source. There's kind of a Freudian mistake. I guess that would work too. Few know how to get the data from, it's not even really original source, API, web scrape sources. I mean, that kind of covers it. It's either a formal API or it's a web scrape. Sometimes you get it from people on hard drives or whatever, but you know, few people know how to do that. It's, you know, it's hard because it takes scripts, because it takes custom scripts. It's hard because it takes authentication. And between writing a script and being able to handle authentication, right off the bat mostly defeats people. It just mostly defeats people. When you can write the scripts that fetch the data and deal with the authentication problems that come up, you are very valuable. This is before even cleaning. And then it's hard to know how to grab and store it quick without various paralysis. There's a thing that happens here that paralyzes people from the data fetch. They get it. Oh, what is authentication? Authentication is username password in various sorts. What used to be username password has become much more difficult of late. You will encounter OAuth. So it takes authentication, which used to be username password, which also was easy. So I see you're an IT/CS person. So, you know, you should know that, you know, the simplicity of username passwords is going away. On the web, it's becoming two-factor authentication everywhere, or single site login. For some reason, they use O there, single site SSO. So anyway, this is for web users. When it's not a web user, it uses more and more often OAuth 2. Or some variation of It's key value. It's often key value, right? So public-private key. They're all public-private key schemes, but they just, OAuth 2 is even more complicated. So it's really tough. It's really tough to authenticate. So it's so tough, in fact, that I have a pip installable package for it, right? OHAWF, because it's awful. Awful. It's so awful that I wrote a package for it. So if you pip install OAuth, you'll find one of my packages here about the author, right? So there I am. I used to be Mike Levin, SEO in New York City. Since the pandemic, I got my butt back to PA. I'll have to update this if I even can. I've been cut off from PyPy because of 2FA, but I have a request in for them to help me out. But if you pip install OAuth, you can then, in a notebook, and in fact, I could show this to you, but you can import OAuth, and then you can set cred equals OAuth.get, and then it pops up to one of these large authentication challenges where you copy and paste the URL into the browser, and then you copy the token back. And by doing that man in the middle, it's a man in the middle. It's a three-legged authentication involving the web browser. I guess it's picture time. This is so complicated, and so few people really understand or are capable of handling this that it's a showstopper for most people. And I am extremely valuable because I can fetch data, because these things have been showstoppers for most people. It's impossible for most people to get around three-legged authentication challenges. So normally key value stuff only would take, a person, and they have a key in their hand, and they ask for something, and then there's I guess a lock here, which is knows about the key, and if that key fits the lock, then it will return the data back. And it used to be that simple, okay? But it's become something very different now. There is Google in the middle, or some authentication thing where I see if I even do it right. You got this, and boy, oh boy. I'll put Google here because they're one of the big authenticators. You don't have a key yet that fits this lock. The lock is still sitting out here at some service or app. But your key is, I'm going to put that in red. Your key is not a working key yet. You have sort of a potential key that might work, but that key needs to be turned white in order to work. So you make a request of Google. Google returns a white key to you. Says, here's your key. And now using the white key, you can go there and get your data back. And so this is the third leg of the three-legged authentication. These keys expire. This key is going to eventually poof and become red again. And you're going to go through this. This is eventually going to go bad again. And you're going to have to go through that key re-authentication. And this is because these folks are an authority. The idea is that there's an authority in the picture. See, because an OAuth, right? It's the authentication authority. Without an authority like this, nobody trusts these keys. These keys are bad without someone who's a heavy hitter from a technical perspective to manage the issuing of temporary keys. And I use language like keys really loosely. There's actually a refresh token in the picture. So this is a refresh token, and then this is an authentication token. You know, and so the language varies a bit, but it's just become so complicated that few people can navigate it. Learning to navigate that is I'll go to my, as if I had it organized well. See, I don't have it organized well. I'm just starting to organize this stuff. It's all in my head. That's why some of the projects I'm doing now are about getting organized. So in my site, who would ever be expected to go into my blog and make sense of all this? It's all like all mishmashed together. So that's what I'm doing now with categories. I should probably put a category link up here so that people can, you know, drop into some, you know, category and have a much more controlled experience. Even these subsets of pages are not quite as controlled experience and storytelling as I would like to do. It's all sort of raw and dirty, such as it were. And I'm trying to make a funnel, right? Conceptually, what I'm doing now with my websites, and again, this is for work. I mean, it's $9.50, but this is honestly work because I think through things out loud to myself all the time in sort of the mouth of the funnel. Right? Everything in life is a funnel. Things go in dirty. They go in, you know, as a mishmash and lots of stuff. And you do things like here, like idea capture. And it's a rolling ocean of stuff. It's a rolling ocean. And it's not clean. It's not, you know, refined, but it goes in, you know, all a mishmash. And then more organizing principles, a transformation. I'll use purple because it's a transformation. And the neck of this thing narrows. And whereas it was, you know, this is all sequential. This is time sequential. This is how life works up here. But down here, it becomes much less about how life works, and it becomes more about manual organization and order, superimposed hierarchies, which is not how life works. And then ultimately, there's a prize down at the bottom. I don't even know. I guess we're up to red or turquoise, or I guess it's turquoise kinds of makes the gift at the bottom. There's some gift wrapped boxes down here as things become much more packaged messages. And so these things will go off into different websites. Orange. So these go into other sites. They don't even exist yet. But all this rough idea capture stuff here, well, I would like to do it even down to the hierarchical stuff. I'd like to make this type of stuff go to sites like, you know, mikelev.in. No reason not to. It's just going to take a while to get slightly more organized stuff, right? To get it down to here is where I'm trying to get it now with this kind of stuff I'm showing you here. It's not even organized enough, but at least it can force you to follow a sequential story. And in fact, that's not even the arrows. The sequential story is by following the arrows here. I might rethink the forward and backward. It reflects the order that's actually, you know, top to bottom because, you know, sequentially and all that. But yeah, some rudimentary navigation. I don't think it's ready for public consumption. You're joining me while I'm thinking it through in rough form. Yeah, it's awesome that I've been thinking about it, and for months, my friend, years. I'll give you a very rough timeline. 1996. Web. Oh my God. Right? But unlike all these titans who went off and did Amazon and stuff like that, I did not. So up to about 2006, play at a company called Scala mostly, and that was digital signage. So I was not about the web browser. I was about other things, other displays. Still use TCP/IP and other forms of connectivity, but I was in this bizarro parallel world from 2006 to 2012. I guess what I want to do is I guess put in 2012. I was marketing in New York City. And there was something called Hittail here. I wasn't without doing web stuff. Hittail. I did this thing called Hittail. But around here is kind of where my kid happened. My kid happens right here. I had my child, and I knew that web marketing was killing my soul, and that I had a limited amount of time to reposition. So from about, in fact, I'm going to erase this. See, I can just erase using the back of my stylus. Take that, Apple Pencil. I'm going to say to 2010, right? Because while I still stayed marketing, I'm going to say up till around 20, let's see, the full repositioning, I'm a Linux, Python, Vim, and Git person. You might even say till current, but 2017, 2016, 2017. Let's say 2006 because there's those sixes. It makes it nice and symmetrical. Linux, Python, Vim, and Git. This had a lot to do with the kid being on the picture. I knew I was running out of time. We'll put an hourglass there, right? I very much knew that the sands of time were running out on me and there wasn't enough time in life for everything. So I aggressively repositioned myself on Linux, Python, Vim, and Git. By the way, I had done a bunch of other things back in these days, like at Scala for digital signage. There was a content management system. There was a tracking system. There was a SEO system. I did a whole bunch of stuff that was like Twitter ahead of Twitter, WordPress ahead of WordPress. I did highly inventive stuff here. I invented a lot. But everything I invented went obsolete on me. Everything I used in Hittail, all that stuff, it all just went obsolete on me for various reasons that I always complain about. This all imploded, and all my knowledge and know-how, my 10 years and 10,000 hours, 10 years, if it were only 10 years, 10K hours, and you know, what this is credited to, now it's not really him who did the research, but this is credited to the book Outliers. And that's Malcolm Gladwell. So all that got flushed down the toilet, and that's why I became obsessive about taking up technologies that were resistant to obsolescence. Now, this last bit of time, and I know I'm running off on a big tangent, I'll check whether there's stuff coming in from you on questions. Oh, Scott's saying something, and Shala, wow, a lot of people are joining in. You worked at Scala. My company still has some Scala servers running. Yeah, I worked at Scala Multimedia, Scala Digital Signage. I worked at Scala when they were still an Amiga company owned by the Norwegians. I document a lot via my journal. How do you refer back to these notes and how easy it is to locate what you are looking for? These are all excellent questions. So you see me making a new journal, a new entry here in my personal journal. That's a little bit of a mistake. This doesn't belong in my personal journal. This belongs here. Whoops, I hit the keyboard shortcut for making it belongs here. There, and I just copied and pasted it into my public journal. But if we go back and look at my personal journal, whoops, save, colon B, previous, you'll see that I have these tags here, and I just position my cursor on top of a tag and hit Shift 8, and it jumps through everywhere where I put one of these tags in. Now, unfortunately, it kind of conflicts with Markdown, so you see alternating between italics and non-italics. So if I were to do this again, I would use a different character other than underscore at the top. But whenever there's a topic that I need to step through a lot, you see me experimenting with it with Python. A double underscore undoes the italics, so I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do there. But whenever I want to step through anything having to do with my kid or things I want to investigate or my plans, I just position my cursor over top of one of these and I hit Shift 8, and each time I hit Shift 8, it jumps to where I tagged it as such. So that's how I can tag things as I go. But honestly, it is not about going back and rereading as much as you might think. It is about thinking out loud. It is honestly about thinking it through for the first time. In fact, now that I've answered all this stuff, that's enough of my answer for Ben, because all the rest of this is transforms. Transform, transform. And that's another way of saying get good at pandas. Get good at Python pandas. Pandas lets you do all kinds of wonderful data transforms. ETL comes to mind. There's something called ETL that you can investigate. I forget exactly what it stands for, but there's so many good practices and so much traveled ground here that, you know, Google is your friend. You can always figure out how to transform from whatever data format you're sitting on into whatever data format people need in order to utilize the data. You're just massaging it for other people who can get the real value out of the data. But being the person whose door they knock on and they say, we need data, and you can go, I can get you data, it's no problem. I know TCP/IP, secure, non-secure, logging into all these different APIs, the challenges of logging in, how to pull the data back and get it to the hard drive quickly without using the cloud. You can do that. You can do that with SQLite, and you can do that with key value pairs much more fastly. I say these things quickly, but there's so many nuanced points here. And so going back to know what you did is not so much a matter of rereading anything you wrote. It's just key concepts floating to the surface over time, because it's not about rereading, though tags at the top help, like this. And then I would put a tag up here that said like this, although you can see it conflicts with Markdown. If I were to do this again, we use something that doesn't conflict with Markdown. Tilde is very strong because tilde also has the meaning of links in hypertext. Now we have to see if it's part of the same word. We do that by hitting Shift 8. And see how it's not highlighted? That's a problem. That means it's not part of the word. Can't use tilde. You got to use something that's implied as part of the word. A minus would work, but now a minus has that bullet point implication if it as at the beginning. But now if you do Shift 8, oh, still not. Did underscore count as part of the word? Yeah, see how that underscore? So it's really unfortunate. We need to find some other some other character that's considered as part of the word that doesn't have markdown implication. Backtick? No. But for now, I'm just going to do double underscore because see, it undoes the italics, and it might be that simple. Double underscore has special meaning in Python. Dunders. You can call your tags dunders. So here, look. Now that'll jump through every place where I use like this. So you just tag as you go, and you can jump through them. That's one way. Now I have this wonderful system where if I give something, I guess first a headline, answering, this one is answering Scott M. But now if I do a tag at T, it's really a category, I can say, I can start a new category. Whoops. Entering EX mode, visual, get out of EX mode. Category is going to be question and answer. Question and answers. And that would establish a new category. So these are going to be generated out as part of my content management system. So I guess part of this is knowing I have my own content management system. You can get it. It's on GitHub. I have my own CMS called Skite, which lets me use one journal, one text file, and lots of blog-like entries in combination with Vim macros. See, to blog and for life. In one of my files, I keep that file for life or per site or per topic, whatever have you. So there's at least 3 ways of organizing now, right? So I have multiple journal.mds that divide by, let's call it site, but for people who aren't doing web publishing, it can be, you know, by broad topic. And then I have categories. It's a one-to-one relationship, I would point out. Category belongings for those posts that make sub-blogs. They're sub-blogs, right? And then I have a dunder tagging system that lets me jump around tags ad hoc. They're ad hoc. You can see I still have some sort of markdown rendering collision because I think this line is a brighter white than the lines above it. So I might even rethink that dunder approach. It seems so good. But what it's really saying is start doing italics and then stop doing italics. Let's see if dunder at the beginning and end is any better. It makes the tag italic. This might be on the edge of, and I can't call it dunder then. Itagix. Haha! I love it. I love it. Oh my God. You are inspiring me. Yeah, it's a good way to learn faster and refer back to things when needed. So this is all based on taking notes as a excellent way of learning. Okay, so taking notes is and this is now 10 a.m. I'm going into the workday. I'm going to work a little later tonight in order to make up for this. But honestly, this is work. This is how we work, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, knowledge workers. Excuse me while I rant. Knowledge workers of the information age bring their minds and capabilities as their part of the deal. They have value because they pre-generated skills and abilities that you can see I can jump around pretty well. Even if I lose place in Vim, it's pretty easy to get back. You pre-generated skills and abilities. I was trying to get out that double I, but it didn't think that was a misspelling. I must have turned off spelling. Maybe not. Okay, so we have pre-generated skills and abilities that an organization needs, that the organization needs. We don't work for ourselves because bringing it to an organization releases our value more efficiently than all the overhead of working for ourselves. Employees, paperwork, marketing, taxes, etc. Right? So if you're wondering whose philosophies I'm kind of quoting and inferring here, is Peter Drucker. There's a lot of books by Peter Drucker. There is unlimited books by Peter Drucker. It's a lifetime of reading. But if you were to do only one, I guess I would suggest Managing in Times of Great Change. And it's about knowledge workers. Nobody's going to tell you this stuff. Nobody's going to tell you that Python pandas is the moneymaker. When coupled with OAuth 2, in particular OAuth 2, there's other things, but let's put a clear label on it since I'm calling out Python pandas as a particular package. When coupled with OAuth 2, know-how, savvy, got to be savvy at accessing data. Most people aren't going to be able to do this. OAuth 2 is a showstopper for most people. And so every project that seems simple is hard because OAuth 2. Platform and on the cloud, which is good, but is proprietary, which is not good. Okay. So the cloud, okay, the cloud must be optional. The new vendor dependency trap battle, i.e. slapping a leash on you, is taking place through proprietary application program interfaces, cloud APIs, but also VS Code. No doubt. Who will learn Vim or Git when you have VS Code? The answer is no one. And thus, Microsoft dependency is assured. Make no mistake at all. In fact, here in this terminal that Microsoft so graciously gives us, you cannot get rid of the Azure entry. You can rename it a little bit. I put bwarb as a, shout out to Gravity Falls, but I can put my cloud server I connect to a lot. I keep PowerShell and command prompt there because I do use them on occasion, and this is my default one. But you cannot get rid of this Azure one. So this wonderful gift that they give you in the unified terminal ensures, in ways as insidious as those built into VS Code, that all roads lead to Microsoft cloud dependency on Microsoft in general, but cloud API dependencies in particular Case in point, how Git is used under VS Code. That Microsoft bought GitHub, that Microsoft killed the Atom original Electron text editor. I mean, people. The biggest trick, so where is safety? Where is safety? SQLite. It's technically SQLite 3. Learn to use it for everything locally. You at least have a cross-platform contingency plan for all things, data. High performance-ish data. All SQLite 3 work can be adapted to the cloud for scaling, etc. So that's one of the first ones. The Unix way is the other. The Unix way, but these days it's really the Linux way. When you learn it, there's a lot about Linux that makes you just completely impervious to cloud obsolescence. It just, I can't emphasize that point enough. You're not going to find anything if you Google the Linux way, although that's what it's become in today's world. If you want to understand what I'm talking about, Google the Unix way. And toolbox concepts. There's a lot to learn there about that. The thinking that went behind Unix and therefore is also behind Linux will always make you impervious to sudden obsolescence due to things changing, due to changing APIs, due to software going away on you. Let's see these questions. You wouldn't recommend going to the web career path Django Flask? No, Django and Flask are fine. Django and Flask are rare safe harbors. Their APIs change what? Every 10 years? Maybe. They're just unique. They're unique. It's not like being on Django and Flask is not like being on, say, Ruby on Rails and React. For case in point, when Flask embraced concurrency, which is the await, async await keywords and mode, the API didn't break. Compare that to Fast AI. It's not Fast AI, it's Fast API. Fast API, where pedantic is a dependency, as is web documentation publishing. Very Microsoft. I would stay, if you're doing web development, you use some of the ones that are timeless and eternal. I mean, Django isn't breaking on you and Flask isn't breaking on you. They both have a very Pythonic, don't change the API obsessiveness about them. So that's what you look for. That's what you look for in obsolescence resistance, long-term tools. Look for non-changing APIs in, long-term tools. The Unix way. That's the Unix way. It's non-changing APIs in long-term tools. That's a good way to summarize the Unix way, which is also the Linux way. And it also appears in a lot of timeless-esque Python tools. You know, certainly Django, certainly Flask, hopefully Pandas. It has not proven itself yet. It has not been out long enough yet to prove itself. And hopefully requests. It hasn't updated to the concurrency world, but at least HTTPX is API compatible. Thank goodness. Okay, so like obsolescence resistance on Python. Right, so that's what we're talking about there. Excellent point about overhead. You may have changed my life plan with that idea. Yeah, overhead. Yeah, overhead is a problem. Technical liability and overhead. It's what vendors hold over your head. It's liable to be chopped off. Leaving you with obsolete skills. I'm not convinced spell check is on. I guess it is. No, it's not. Spell check is not showing. Yeah, I've messed up spell check and stuff. Here, I just quit. You'll see when I quit, I automatically push up any Vim RC changes, and then I just go back in. And then you hit Control Space to get back, and then G semicolon to get back to where I was typing. I do my spell check thing again. Yeah, no, my highlighting is messed up because of all that underscore stuff I'm doing. But I'll figure that out later. I don't need to do that on your time. Points I can give you about the overhead and the liabilities. You know, some APIs are going to not change for a while. Like, what about the Amazon S3? You're doing cloud stuff. Amazon S3, you know, it's a bit bucket. Key value bit bucket. Used everywhere. Vendor specific. Liability? Probably not. Everyone copies it. Or easy mapping layers, middleware, whatever you want to call it. Mapping layers, middleware, translation layers, or easy, you know, easy translation. Okay, so one of my very favorite tricks of all is to use the Python dictionary, use Python dict API, standard built-in data model, like an int, like an integer, like a float. Python also has list, tuple, and dict. Of these, the dict is a universal key value pair API applicable everywhere and in everything, highly optimized, and can be back-ended, stupid word, but for lack of anything else, back-ended by SQLite 3, Redis, Amazon S3, or what have you. But by using the standard API, your code will never break, and you can change what back ends your key value pairs for persistence. Does that even make sense? This is $1 million trick. It's just so valuable. You know, you use a standard timeless API so that when things change around you, the vendors aren't screwing you. They have no way to screw you. They try and screw you. You unplug it from their stuff and plug it into someone else's. Yeah, an engineer trying to transition into dev. I'm never sure whether what I'm learning is what is needed in the profession. I guess going the obsolescence route is key. Yeah, so to me, obsolescence resistance is key. Is key to me, but entirely at odds with the VS Code and full web stack world, right? Under here, you're going to find, under both of them, they're all the same. I don't even know how to make subpoints. Node.js and JavaScript in general. Right? So this world is the world everyone will compel you into. You know, I've been these types of, I'm 51. I'm 51 years old and have been made obsolete by so many things that looked like sure bets. But there is no such thing but Unix, okay? We're lucky to have Linux, groundswell. We're lucky to have Guido van Rossum paranoid about changing APIs. Python. That's a great gift. And there's subpoints here, you know. We're lucky Python replaced Perl as the ship with Nix language. There's the screwed up markdown. I'll go star Nix. Asterisk Nix. I'll just say ship with Nix language. That gets the point across. And, you know, we're all temporarily screwed by Java scripts, you know, eminence, emergence, you know, dominance. It's temporary. We're temporarily screwed by JavaScript's dominance. We all have to yield to that world, but it will become much like SQL or regex. Who really loves SQL or regex? But they're always present subsystems and keywords, backup systems, subsystems, and resume keywords. So be it. JavaScript, same thing. User interface APIs. Concurrent, which is another way of saying non-blocking. And always there. Thank goodness it wasn't display PostScript. It could be worse. So, you know, we're all going to need to know JavaScript for a good long time, but it's not in the sense of your one language to rule them all, like the full web stack would imply. It's a lot more like one language to always be your user interface work. You know, Python's weak there. I wouldn't advocate Python or Qt or all these various things you can use for user interface work with Python. You know, if you want a solution there, HTMX loosely couple a JavaScript API layer with Python backend server. Yeah, that's it. That's how you do it. If you really want to deal in a Pythonic way to deal with all today's web dev gotchas, new framework every year, right? That's pretty generous. New framework every year. Everyone's flocking right now to Vue.js from React, and after Vue.js, it'll be to something else. And if you want to get rid of that sort of pain, you look up HTMX. You can't get JavaScript out of your life. It's not going to work. It works with a library called Alpine.js for the loose coupling. This is for kind of a web service or template language. I guess that's how I would put it. I'm not doing it much myself, but I certainly have investigated it. It's an issue. Okay. Yeah. Oh, LXD. Yeah. That's so the work I'm putting off right now is the LXD work. It's there. It's working. It's ready to go. It's my new Linux playground under Windows. And I know I have some other things here to look at an answer, but I do have a drawing I'll do in a moment. It's so important. It's so important. I'm getting my butt off Microsoft. I mean, so I see WSL here. And okay, are you planning to get back to the LXD under WSL2? Last video was a bit of a cliffhanger, but I think you actually had it working and didn't realize. Yes, Scott M., I did have it working. It might have been you in the comments who let me know. And yes, that is so important. My world revolves around LXD under WSL2. I need LXD under WSL2. Not having it is unthinkable. I think I have it working. I need to do data pipelining. I need to do Python data pipelining. Like, oh, there's so many keywords here. The keywords are eluding me. Luigi, but Huey. Huey, Luigi, Huey. So many words, so much wordplay here. So, you know, it's more data mapping. It's all data shell game. It's the grown-up version. So I talk about data, you know, getting and putting. Data getting, shape changing, and putting. You know, there's lots of fancy words for it, but you get data from somewhere, you shape and transform it, and then you put it somewhere. Key to that is the Linux, you know, tool chains. Tools. There's so many different words. Key to that is the Linux tools. All the tools to do that under Linux. Key to that is playing around with various tools under Linux without foobarring, right? my main Linux host. The language is so terrible. And keeping it on my laptop, not cloud. There's really no reason to create cloud dependencies. Like there were ways I could be much faster doing all this. There is no doubt I could be doing it within an hour, doing it some vendor way, but that is snapping the handcuffs on you, snapping a leash around your neck and being led around by a vendor, doing it the same exact way. Every one of your coworkers is going to be able to do it for the next year, because after that it's all going to change and they're going to have to train and relearn. So why am I training and relearning? Well, all my pain is because Windows laptops are cheap, cool, and very well supported. From, drivers to, repairs. Yeah, you can get yourself a Linux laptop, but you're not going to be able to do this. Right? That kind of stuff is important to me. Turning a stylus around to its back and having an eraser. You can't even do that with the Apple platform. This is really, really cool stuff. It's important to me. I like feeling good about my equipment. I like feeling good about what I'm doing. Look at these virtual screens. This is why I'm not on Windows 11 yet. It's not this cool yet. I mean, is any of this making sense to you? Even ArrowSnap. I'm no fan of Microsoft, but Macs can't let you ArrowSnap as well as I do here. And if I want it even better, there's Power Tools that could let me set this up as a template, but I don't need that because ArrowSnap itself is that cool. Where's Apple and Macintosh getting to a highly functional? See, it's not so much Windows as it is window panes. You see, these are kind of like window panes. And all that is good. It makes for an environment that, I can sit down in any office. I won't be missing oh, I need my Linux desktop. I need my GNU, or, I need my Plasma or my Mint or something. That's just as bad as vendor dependency. Don't get dependent on, some rare, thing. Linux desktops are a rare thing. You're rarely in a condition where you're using the same one you were at. This is one of the few places where the vendor offering is the common thing and the better place to be. So yield to it. So all my pain is because I'm yielding to that reality of Windows laptops being cheap and awesome. And it's offering WSL2. It's offering the Windows subsystem for Linux, which appears good enough, especially if supporting LXD, which is the real Linux playground, So there are nested Linux playgrounds. WSL Linuxes can be swapped out easily enough, but not so easily for rapid daily, new Linux playgrounds, which I need for my next phase of work. Right? You saw me switch from Linux 20.04 back to Linux 18.04. It was fine. But it's like a 5 gigabyte download. It's got its own current. There's all kinds of things that make it not something you want to do on just a brief type in a little line basis. But with LXD, you can. It's just like changing a current directory. Spin up a new one. Doesn't take any more space in your system, essentially. And, it's like, so I need virtual env, aka venv. Both of these are competing. I need those as in Python, but for Linux. And so it's unthinkable to not have this. It might be enough to get me off of the Microsoft platform if I can't crack this LXD thing, but I'm pretty sure I have. Guile is the ship with GNU language. Yeah, so Guile, I researched it a little bit. It might have been you, Ben, who've taught me about it, but GUI, what a great word, GUILE. Guile is, I guess, like a new bash script. So, you know, once upon a time, there was Unix script. Not good enough. So each shell had their own, which led to bash script. And I guess Korn has its own, Korn shell must have its own scripting language, which of course is problematic. No one likes. So then there was Perl. All Unixes and Linuxes started shipping with Perl, thus the P of the original LAMP platform. Linux, Apache, MySQL, and mostly Perl in those early days. It then became PHP and Python. Yeah, even in those early days, it was PHP and Python. Even before Django, there was Zone and Plone and Zope. You can Google it, though. Python was right there with the rise of the LAMP stack with CMS systems that came even before Django. But Perl is dated, is overkill and underkill at the same time. So many flocked to Python, and Python became the new Perl, but the GNU organization can't have such, what would you call that? Dissonance in the GNU toolset. So they replaced Unix script with Guile. Guile could let you do away with Python if you just wanted obsolescence resistance in, you know, in the basics. In the basics. SQL-like data manipulation with Python pandas is not the basics. Though much could be accomplished with, it's not just Guile. We'll put Guile first, G-U-I-L-E. There's also a couple other tools in there. The Stream Editor and awk. Guile said an awk could probably do away with a lot of even Python pandas stuff, but I won't go there because it's a little too, I don't even know. It is so the Unix way. It is so the Unix way. However, Python, including the pip install, you know, and everything else, is too good to walk away from. And now it's 10, it's almost 11:15. I really got to wrap this up. So if there's any more questions, you get them in. I'll take a quick look at who's with me. This was really different than what I thought it was going to be starting out. Wow, holy smokes. Yeah, I guess getting into the day naturally is going to have a lot more viewers. And it's an interesting, different video than what I thought. But yeah, it was very stimulating. It's helping take me to the next step. I'm definitely going to LXD as the next step. When I stop this, I'm switching over to that, picking up where I left off, but probably not in the video because I got to get to work. I got to be heads down and learn myself some Huey and adapt some dashboarding work to run under Huey, under LXD, under WSL2 on my Windows 10 laptop, right? Interesting stuff. And I don't see how it could not be the way most people work, right? If I do just one more video here, it eludes me that the way people work isn't, it's cheap, it's available, and it's really awesome. Hardware. You know, mostly Windows laptops. I'm sorry to say it, but it's the truth, right? Microsoft got into the hardware business and did a bang-up job on it. And if it's not Microsoft's laptops, it's Dell's or Asus's or some other, and they're just really awesome. And so you can't get away from having Windows on it. And for me, it's Windows 10. But it's going to be 11 for a lot of people because of WSL. So, you know, I'm going to put 11 there, you know, but you can't do these cool screen transitions yet with 11. So, that's so painful. Come on, Microsoft, you've got to get that up. So purple, the language of transitions and magic. There is now a Linux subsystem, which is every bit on the same level, right? So, I mean, I guess, you know, you've watched me talk about this enough to know that this is because of a layer that we don't even have to talk about that much in there called the hypervisor. And that's just Intel's language for it. But it's a invisible, but still there layer. It runs all the way across. It'll even run all the way over here where I'm about to draw the Linux playgrounds. And these little LXD playgrounds, I'll draw 2 of them because that's probably all I'm going to, you know, ever have running simultaneously. But honestly, it's because of this picture here, right? This is the way of working, right? This is Mickey's Sorcerer's Apprentice, right? This is when I say playground, I don't mean it in any small way. I mean, I'm going to be using these things the way people use virtual env for whole Linux systems. Which, by the way, you might note has the whole Python similar part underneath of it, which is why, you know, I draw this with just 2 because I'm not really going to make this large of a software footprint. But, you know, say Python now is ultimate prizes I'm tending to use as this turquoise color. But, you know, there's going to be a Python that has a virtual env, Python virtual env. So, you know, you've got even the advantages of venv underneath an LXD. I don't know how much, you know, this means to people out there, but it's a very nice picture for dependency isolation, for developing things that, you know, you don't have to get bogged down. You're not, it seems like this is overhead. This is the opposite of overhead. This is not getting bogged down by stuff, because doing these, doing the experiments on a whole branch of these is just a command. It's just a terminal command, and you spin off another Linux machine with all its stuff it needs to do an experiment, and you get rid of it if it doesn't work, and you do another one, and then maybe one or two of them become like your sort of go-to ones, and then on occasion you let innovations that you made in those like go back in here. And so this improves. This, by the way, is WSL, right? I think people understand that it's WSL2 in particular that enables this picture. And I cannot live without this. I cannot live without this. This is my future. This is not only my future, this has got to be the future of all developers. How can it not be? This is the promise of everything. You know, the right levels, the correct levels of dependency isolation, so that everything becomes fluid and easy. Yeah, you're welcome, Scott M. It's my pleasure. Ear of Gorgon, yeah, peace. Thank you. Same to you. This is a lot of fun. I definitely wrap up now and get to my LXD stuff. You know, thanks everyone. You know what you can do if you want to do something? Comment. Please comment. Please comment on the video. Find it on the latest mikelev.in blog post. I am organizing them for you. The greatest thanks will be to help me blow up on YouTube. I am an SEO, after all, and I'm experimenting with different, you know, factors, with different, you know, factors. And comments on videos seem to me like one of the most important. Interaction is invaluable, a sure sign of quality. So if you think you're onto something here, at least give me a hello on comments. I really appreciate it. And now, back to our regularly scheduled workday. Peace out. Huh, so painful to disconnect with so many people attached. Get questions in. If you have questions, I will go to 11 a.m. You got 9 minutes. Got 9 minutes. Finish my coffee. I'll get myself mentally prepared. But I can't just disconnect when there's that many of you there. And that's what YouTube is admitting is there. How many more are actually there, and this interface isn't showing it. So, you know, if you got questions, get them in. I'm happy to answer one or two more in the time that's left. And I'll type while I wait because, yeah, I know I'm different, but I'm just using the tools Microsoft is including for themselves to not be rendered obsolete. Hilarious turnaround. Is it not? But by giving the doorway to the world of Linux, they are also installing vendor dependency traps like this and VS Code. To keep you from working in LXD under WSL2 and from Vim. Honestly, right? Those two things are one, to keep you from working using the power of your local machine, using all the wonderful Linux tools you have. You're not going to know about your wonderful Linux tools because your one pristine Linux WSL system is going to get polluted and messed up in all the many ways it will because you're new to it and there's so many ways to screw up a Linux install. So having throwaway playground Linuxes is so important. Can you install duplicate copies of WSL Linux? Yeah, you can. So, but each has an approximately 8 gigabyte footprint. LXD footprints are much tinier. So it's about hard drive space on a laptop. Anti-cloud methodology is keeping, your virtual Linuxes light and small. I guess that's what I'm saying, right? So there's ways to do it, but you'll notice I actually threw out my Ubuntu 20.04 for my 18.04 because I didn't want both of them sitting on my hard drive. Yeah. So there's always alternatives. There's always alternatives. VirtualBox was once one. Then it got bought by Oracle, just like MySQL. So paths to lightweight that don't get gobbled up or otherwise ruined by vendors are rare gifts. Vendors don't want you forming daily habits. Habits are daily. That's redundant. Don't want you forming habits around. LXD is one. Vim is one. Vim plus LXD is Microsoft's nightmare. It's not conspiracy that systemd isn't active on WSL by default, but it certainly doesn't hurt Microsoft's cause. Systemd is just general Linux system automation that serves as an alternative to many other vendor techs. Yeah. Well, yeah, you can do 120.04 for plain work. You know, a lot of the stuff I'm talking about changes when you get onto a powerful home system. If you've got a gaming machine, like a, you know, something that's decked out for Alienware and the 3D games, you could probably go to town with lots of different, because WSL is just a program that you can run with different, you know, it's got a wonderful interface. I guess I can do that right here in the terminal. I don't need to go anywhere. I just bring up a PowerShell. So first thing is WSL help. You can see the different things that can be done under WSL. I can't pipe it to less. But, you know, you can see different things. So list, WSL-L for list. And you can see I just have the 118.04 on my system. But you can use these commands to, you know, just run different ones on your system. And so, yeah, you can totally do it for work. And Microsoft would very much like you to do that, because you know how you get these different things on your system? Go to the Microsoft store. So you go to Microsoft with your hat in your hand, and you say, "Please, sir, may I have some more Linux?" And they'll be like, "Yes, certainly you can. Just go to the Microsoft store and choose the Linux you want, and we'll plop another 8 gigs on your drive." It's a part of the vendor trap, dude. You just get yourself the Linux version you want, you know, and it'll be put in your start menu. It's like, there's Ubuntu right there in my start menu, right? So it's, you know, Windows subsystem for Linux, WSL. Think about why they named it WSL instead of Linux subsystem for Windows, LSW. Would have made more sense. And, you know, Linux must always be subordinate. Anything showing you Linux can run the show is bad. I thought I tried it before, and Microsoft Store says it's already installed. Oh, you tried it, and oh, I see multiple copies of 20.04. Yeah, LXD would be particularly good along those lines, but you know, you're going to find different copies. I mean, it would have to be subtly different copies, because you know, there's LTS versions and there's other versions. So you're right, it would try and get you to jump through hoops in order to get different versions. But you will find that just because of them having released different versions into the store, you can install two 18.04s, two 20.04s. They'll be subtly different. One might have the letters LTS after it and the other doesn't. So look in the store more if you want to find another copy of it. But LXD is just, you know, it's the real Linux way of doing it. You cut the Windows Store out as a dependency on doing this sort of stuff, which then becomes generic forever knowledge. Even though it comes from Canonical, the LXD technology comes from Canonical, as opposed to the Linux Foundation. I thought it was from the Linux Foundation. But it's going to percolate its way up. It's going to go the route of KVM, the kernel virtual machine, KVM, right? So LXD is on its way to being like the kernel virtual machine. KVM, which is a hypervisor for Linux, built into the kernel and part of the official Linux. You know, there is no single official Linux distro. Maybe there is, but the single official Linux. You know, it won't be Docker. Docker's too strange. LXD works just like KVM, but containers. You can bet on it becoming the standard and being forever knowledge. Yeah. Docker just gets all the attention. It was first. It's good. I'm not knocking Docker. It's just strange. It's the API stuff that I hate. You know, I know a hateful API when I see one, and Docker is not my vibe at all. And LXD saying just, oh, give me a new Linux machine. Oh, there's my new Linux machine. You just switch over to it like you would a virtual machine, but it's a container that's efficient because it's sharing all the resources from your host or your main Linux. It's ideal. It's like you're not even learning anything. All this stuff that's complicated for me and setting it up is just the initial startup work, which is going to go away, by the way. It's not going to remain that difficult. And this is where I wrap it up. Oh my God, I have so much difficulty stopping something. Yeah, everyone dropped off. Okay, everyone has the same ideas. This has gone on for a while. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Get your final parting shots in, and let's all get back to work. Love you all. Thanks. Comment on the video. Go to mikelev.in, and you'll see this appear there in a moment when I release it with the embed to this video, comment on the video, etc. Take care.